Yeah, hi everyone. Jason here, Robot Lawn Mowers Australia. Today, as I promised in the previous video with the ECOVACS GOAT, I'll show you how the actual Ecovax has gone in my backyard. It's been running here for approximately a month. We'll have a look at how many times it's mowed in a second in the app because it gives you all that information. And yeah, I'll sort of run through basically what we found out with the ECOVACS G1 GOAT on this property, which is obviously a very simple property. You can see the robot working on in the background behind us, and we'll follow that around with the camera a bit and show you exactly what it does and what it didn't do. Forgive me for my big dead patch of lawn at the back here, which has been caused from a trampoline. But all in all, sort of the final wrap up of the ECOVACS G1 GOAT is that it really did work very, very well. It's been quite flawless. We haven't had any mishaps other than one, which I'll talk about in a second. But other than that, it really has been really good. So let's have a look in the app. I'll just get it connected on the phone here. So straight away, put the app up on the screen for you. You can see that the G1's running up and down on that angle on this lawn here at the moment. And as it goes past, as it finishes the mow, it actually turns the dark green back to light green. So you can see that it's what status of the mow it's at. And then down the bottom, obviously, it's got the mowing area, which is only 50 square metres according to this. It's a little bit more than that, but it's in that ballpark. And it's currently 17%. And of course, you can end or pause the mission at this point in time if you wish to. If we go up into the settings here on the top there, we'll just quickly go to the bottom of here, and I'll just show you. So down to the very bottom here, you've got more settings. We go into there, and inside that, the second one down there is the log. So you can go in there and actually see what it's actually been doing. So since I've installed it, it's actually mowed 37 times. It's mowed 1,610 square metres, and it's operated for 16 and a half hours. So for most of this time, I've had the robot set to fine mode. So if I just go back one level there, I'll just show you. If we go back one level, go into back into settings. Back into the settings there. So at the top of the page there, you've actually got delicate or efficient. So right now it's in efficient, and it takes about 21 minutes, I think, to finish mowing this little lawn, and it does a border cut at the end as well. In delicate, it's almost twice that, so it sort of does it cuts it a bit finely and just doesn't overlap as much as it is currently right now. So the first thing I want to talk about just quickly, and it's in the settings page there right there that we're looking at right now, is the mowing direction. So second down from the top there, you'll see mowing direction. If we go into that, you can actually choose what mowing direction you want it to be. And because the robot's running right now, I can't actually change that. But we've got that angle set roughly in line with this concrete edge here. It's actually a little bit out, but it's close to in line here. So the robot actually mows at its longest and most efficient path coming up and down here. The one sort of thing that I think just needs to be addressed is the fact that that's a global setting, so you can only set it once in the app, and that's what it does. So if you do want it to cut a different angle, which I do, and you might even be able to see in the camera shot there, I think you might actually be able to see that there's still some lines going down this way. So typically about sort of once a week or so, I try and change that direction to a different direction so we don't end up with straight lines mowing through the grass all the time, and try and get a cross-cut pattern happening. So I generally have it going this way, then that way. For the first couple of weeks, I had it going straight off the base station, which is also worth talking about. So the mowing direction, it's actually related to the angle of the base station. Because the base station is out there and pointing straight across my lawn this way, if we had that going straight up and down there, the mowing pattern would be straight up and down. So the angle is set actually relative to how the base station is located, which sort of is quite good because it's very easy to understand what that means. So I've had this robot essentially working at about 7 o'clock every single morning. It comes on, it does one mow every single day since I've installed it. Like I mentioned before, it has had one mishap, and we'll just touch on that now. I'll just put the camera up here on here. So basically just over here, on this section over here, the robot managed to go into the garden bed there. I've got completely no understanding of why it happened. I wasn't here at the time, but the robot basically just went into that garden bed and got stuck. It happened once, and it was about 1 week in from when the when the robot was installed. So again, I've got no understanding of why it actually happened. I don't know what the weather conditions were like at the time. I really don't know anything at all. It could have bumped into something and reversed over the edge there. I really don't know why it happened, but it happened once, and it has not happened again. So every other day in those 37 days that it's mowed, every single day it's come out here, mowed perfectly, gone back, docked perfectly, no issues at all, never got stuck, never got worried about anything. So it really has been very, very reliable how it's going. So now it's coming back across here now, and it'll start doing the angle cut from there, because when it actually came out from the base station, it comes off the base station and starts mowing. So it mowed on an angle back this way, and it worked its way back to that corner. Now it's coming back this side, and it's going to mow back towards me. So it does mow very efficiently. It does exactly what it should do. And the camera system on it has been absolutely flawless. The cleaning of the brushes, so basically every time it goes out, it cleans the brushes before it goes out. So essentially when you hit the go button, or if it automatically starts, the first thing it does is this. I've got a little bit of this little video there for you to show that the camera just goes back and forward. It actually does it at the very front of the robot as well, so there's two brushes in there, and it cleans the camera comes out, and the actual camera lenses themselves are absolutely spotless on it, so it really has done quite well. We've had plenty of rain, storms, sun, dust here in the last month and a half that it's been here, a month or so. Everything is absolutely spotless on those cameras. They look like brand new lenses still, so that's been a really big plus. No issues with the charging sheets, how it goes in a charge with making contact. Again, it's always docked absolutely perfectly. So brings me to essentially the only con that I can see on this robot at the moment, other than the fact that it only does one area, because the one thing to remember that this robot really does only do one area at this point in time. I am yet to test it to try and see if we can put really narrow paths from one area to another, so it thinks that it's one zone, but it still goes through to multiple zones. We will test that in future videos. Obviously, this lawn is as simple as it gets. It really doesn't get any simpler than this. So that robot just turned around there because it actually thought it was running out of grass. It saw an obstacle, again, because of the dead patches of lawn there. So I'll quickly show you the only thing that sort of is a downside, and tell you the truth, it did much better than I expected, is the amount of uncut grass on the edge. You can see across the front here, this edge here is not cut, but I'll just show you quickly on this camera, across the side here. So you can sort of clearly see that all the way down this edge here, there's about 20 centimetres of uncut grass, and then also where it got to this branch here, coming around the corner there, so that branch is uncut, and it comes right out around here, and then comes along, so hasn't cut the grass underneath that branch, because the cameras see the branch and they go around it. So it's not necessarily a problem, obviously, because that's what it's designed to do, but it would be nice to be able to try and set the borders so that it was less tolerant to things, or more tolerant to what might be there, and push its way through. There could be some improvements there, but it really has done a great job, and again, because it's camera driven, I would expect it to go around that. The one thing that I didn't really expect was that all the way along this edge here, so all this edge down here, you can see that there's only a little bit, because it really is only about sort of 5-6 centimetres that it hasn't actually cut, which is a lot better than I thought that it would actually do when it comes down. But I would have thought that the robot would actually be able to straddle the concrete and sit half and half on the concrete. But again, because it's camera driven, it sees that concrete as an obstacle, and it will not drive, over the concrete, or not very much anyway. So when we first started running this, for the first week and a half, when you could just start to see the cut and uncut grass, it was about 15 centimetres wide. It was actually 3 times wider than it currently is. But as the robot works, it's sort of learnt the edges and the borders, and I think it's sort of improving its memory and efficiency on how it actually mows. And it's decided to mow a little bit further over the edge and get right up close to the edge. So, like I said, that's really, really close to the edge, but being concrete, it would be nice if you could get it to straddle it actually over the edge. But like I said, realistically, it's done much better than I thought. And then also down here, we have a very, very similar scenario where this corner here comes around, it hasn't cut this corner here, but this pot plant. So again, just the fact that the pot plant's there, you can see the actual edge goes out and around it. And again, I sort of half expected that to happen being a camera-driven machine. This edge all the way down the side here, so I haven't cut these edges at all, by the way, in the last 37 days that this thing's been mowing. But again, this edge down here, it's about 10 centimetres at the worst, and then 5 centimetres at the best as it goes along there, because again, it sees the concrete edge as an obstacle. So, like I sort of said, I do think it's done a really good job, and I think it's more than acceptable for what it actually does. But being able to refine those edges and tell it where the border actually is and force it to use that border would be an advantage. At the moment, it really has to use that camera-driven system to know when there's an obstacle there or not. So yeah, that's probably that really is, to me, it's the only downside it actually has at this point in time, that it does use the cameras 100%, which it should obviously. So I'll just go back into the settings here again so we can sort of see where we're actually up to here. So go back into the Ecovax. So you can see there again on the screen there, it's now 52% mowed, so it's making its way back towards me, and by the time it gets back to me, it'll actually do its border cut and go around there, and I'll show you it doing its border cut when it gets around to it. Okay. Down the bottom there, if I swipe to the right down the bottom there, it brings up the schedule. You can click into the schedule and it tells you what the schedule times are. If I get rid of that, so there's the actual schedule that it runs for every day in this property at 7 AM. I think I've actually set it for 45 minutes, I think it is, yeah, 45 minutes, but it only takes 21 minutes to mow in that efficient mode and about 41 minutes to mow in the fine mode. And so the schedule works fine, no problems there, had no issues scheduling it, had no issues with it not going out or anything like that. There was one firmware update along the way where I did have to go back out to the robot and put the passcode in to get it back up and running again, which I was a little bit annoyed at. I thought that it probably should be able to restart itself without any problems, and I'm not sure why it really happened that way, but it was a simple thing just to go to the robot and actually put the code back in again. It lost connection with the app at that time, so even though it was actually while I was at work at the time, I've looked at the app, tried to connect to it, and it wouldn't connect. Come home that night, and it wouldn't connect without me going to the robot and putting the code in. Okay. The mapping functions, which I went through when we obviously set this thing up, not much has changed there, but everything really works really well. I never needed to re-optimize the map, so you've got a map optimization there where you can go out and it'll actually go out and search the boundaries again. I never actually had to do that. I've just set it up and just let it run. Go back into the settings again, just to run through. So the rain sensor, I've had that turned off. I didn't want the robot to not work, to not mow if it was raining, not while I'm testing it. If it was just living here its whole life, then yes, I would turn the rain sensor on so it didn't go out in the rain. The animal protection mode, that works perfectly. You can't even send it out manually after hours, and you can edit the time. So the animal protection, you can go in there, you can actually edit the time that you want it to not work overnight, which I think is fantastic. You've got the flexibility of being able to set it yourself, rather than letting a cloud-based system actually tell you when the robot can or can't work. The station keeper setting there, where it detects people within 7 metres, it's probably closer to 5, but 7 metres is probably fairly realistic. But if you walk across this lawn here while the robot's on its docking station, it sends me an alert to the phone or a push notification, tells me that somebody's there. Really, again, it worked rather flawlessly. It always told me when there was someone in the lawn. It seemed to work every single time without a problem. The edge mode there, the next one down, so center of the screen there now. I've had that turned on the whole time. I like my robots to do an edge cut. If it gets to the point where it's starting to run tracks in the edge of the lawn, then yes, you might want to turn that feature off. But realistically, I like it to have the edge cut nice and clean. The next one, which is in the middle of the screen again now, which is the obstacle avoidance mode. Now, I didn't get much of a difference here. The only difference I could see is if I click the first one, which is the flat ground with short grass. If you flick that one, even just the undulation just here that the robot just went through, it sees that as an obstacle. It'll stop and turn around the other way. So when it says flat ground, it really means flat ground. The general environment one and the bumpy ground one, they both seem to work fairly similar to each other. I did see that, once you set it to bumpy ground, which it is now, I tended to see that I think it gets a little bit closer to the edges. It probably shouldn't make any difference at all. But I did notice that once I changed it to bumpy ground, it did seem to get, particularly this edge along here, it seemed to get it a lot more easily when it's coming this way. So when it's mowing into it this direction, it seems to cross over the border a bit further, because it's not as sensitive to an obstacle being in its way. I'll go back into more settings just to see what else is there. I'll get out of the robot's way so he's already sensed me, so let him do his work. I'll stand back here a little bit further, let's let him do his thing. Everything else about it, like I said, it really just has been pretty fantastic as how it's come out and been so reliable right from the get-go. The navigation beacons, this is a really, really good feature. Now, this tells you the signal strength of your map. Now, if you've got an area in your map that's got no signal, then it's going to tell you on here. So when you've actually got a more complicated installation and you've got more beacons around the place, This is really going to be the number one screen you're going to have to look at to see exactly what sort of coverage your map actually has. After speaking with Ecovax service division there a few times now, it looks like you can get away with about, the direct line of sight to 2 beacons needs to cover around about 80% of the lawn. So there can be small areas that are not covered by 2 beacons, but the general rule of thumb is that everywhere this robot goes, it needs to have 2 beacons line of sight. Now that includes an island in the middle here, so if we decided to put a fountain here or a big garden bed here, it was raised up this high, then when the robot's on this side, it would only be able to see that beacon, and when it's on the other side, it'll only be able to see that beacon. It wouldn't work most likely, so haven't been able to test that yet, and I am very keen to try and get this into a more complicated yard now and sort of see how that goes. We just need to get access to more beacons, which we'll have very shortly, actually. So if you haven't sort of seen, so it's currently around about, is it the 9th or the 10th, I think, of September right now? It's the 11th of September, that's what it is. 11th of September today, 2023. The Ecovacs G1 GOAT was released to the media, so the media got wind, was released to them earlier this week on the 7th. And the stock will be available for sale on the 21st of September. So we'll have our stock very shortly in our store, so at that point I'll have some more beacons. We can put this on a more complicated yard, see how it goes, and give you another video just to tell you how it works. But look, back to this screen here. This really is, like I said, it really is the most important screen to have, because it's going to tell you the signal strength of everywhere on your yard and whether your beacons need to be repositioned or whether you need more beacons. So very, very, very important. It's also where you can unpair and pair the beacons later on, so you can add more or take them back and have less. Okay. The accessories one there down further there, I thought this was actually quite good too, to tell the truth, but it actually counts the hours that the robot's working for. Like the first one's blades, it says they've got 63 hours to go. If I just go back and go to the log there again, so we've worked for 16 hours in a month. So if it's saying it's got 63 hours to go, that essentially means that you're going to get 4 to 5 months out of these guys before they need to change the blades, according to that according to that recommendation. I generally sort of say that you probably change the blades about once every 3 months, thereabouts. Does the same thing for the camera brush, so every time the camera brush runs, it counts it, and so it looks like it says you can get 1,000 cleans out of the brush before you need to replace the actual brushes themselves, which are an accessory part that we'll sell as well, so you can get those quite easily. Same thing with the batteries. The battery's it's only a simple thing. If I click on the battery one there, down the bottom there it just says replace. So when you do replace the batteries, you just go in there and hit that button, and it assumes that you replace the batteries in all of your beacons at the same time. So if you do replace batteries, replace them all at once, hit that button, and then it will remind you again in a year's time when you need to replace them again. Navigation beacons again, so it tells us where the navigation beacons actually are. There's nothing in there at the moment to tell us to buy more or anything like that. And then the connection module down the bottom, which is the 4G connection module that we're not getting here in Australia at this point in time. So that's the accessories, everything else in here. So safety settings of the connection is obviously just your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi connection. Really, really easy to connect this guy to the Wi-Fi, because you just go in there and put your passcode in. Now, like all robot lawnmowers and vacuum cleaners and other things that connect to your home network, it needs a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal. It cannot be a 5 gigahertz, so you need to make sure that you understand your Wi-Fi settings on your router. And your phone should be connected to the same 2.4 gigahertz signal when you're actually making that first connection. Everything else in here is okay. Then we've got the safety settings. That just goes through the alarm. Now, I did test the alarm in this guy, and it's quite good. It actually stops. It's going to stop. It's going to notify someone in the area that the robot's been picked up. But because again, it's not 4G related or anything, there's no map. You can't go find the robot or anything like that. But you can set this on that first one there. So as soon as the robot's lifted, the alarm goes off. Or if the robot goes outside of the map, the alarm goes off. Yeah. So that robot's just looks like it's doing its border cut now, and you can see that it is quite a little way away from the edge there. And going around, went around that brown leaf there, so it really does see. It's quite sensitive to a lot of things on the lawn. So the border cut, it's a bit wonky as it goes around the place, but it does actually get nice and close as it goes through, and the robot dockets itself up perfectly fine when it's done. The goat information setting there just goes through. That allows you to name the robot. It also has all of your serial numbers, Wi-Fi addresses, Bluetooth addresses, all those sorts of things. Okay, robot's done now, so he's just going to go back in and dock himself up. And I'll just take a little shot here just to show you what he's actually doing here. So that's him just heading himself back. Slows down once he gets nice and close to the dock, and then just neatly just docks himself in. And you can see obviously the metal bar on the side there. That's one of the contacts, and it goes and makes contact with the charger. But I haven't seen this one actually not just go straight into the charger. It's never backed out from what I've seen, so hopefully it doesn't do that right now to prove me wrong. Generally just lines itself up very nice and neat, and just docks sort of pretty perfect every single time. So, alright, so go back to these settings again just to quickly brief and wrap this up for you. Firmware update. There has been one firmware update while I was going, and it's very simple to update. You just go into the firmware update and go in there. So basically it needs to be on Wi-Fi. We've got to be connected via Wi-Fi to do that. But you can connect on the firmware update, and then push again up to check for updates, and it will go out and automatically download and update the firmware. Everything else, that's sort of about it on the settings. Look, again, I sort of can't stress enough that this has just been really reliable as far as how it's gone. It hasn't really missed much grass. The finish of the grass is really, really good. I'll just take a little little camera shot of that there for you, so you can see, just how the grass actually has its lines and that sort of thing. It just really has picked it up. I have noted though, and I'm not sure if you can see anything here, there's a little bit just there. You probably can't see it on the camera, but there's a little bit just there that's grown just a little bit higher that the robot has actually missed. So it doesn't do absolutely perfect parallel lines. It's 99.9%, but you're definitely going to want these guys to run up in Queensland here every day and mow your lawn. And if you're in a place where it's not growing quite as quick, every second, every third, every fourth day or something, and then when it's really not growing very quick at all, once a week will be fine. So there's definitely a very, very small amount of uncut grass, but it really is. It's so small that you just won't notice. And if you do change your angle, every week or two, you just won't see anything at all, and you'll end up with an absolutely perfectly cut lawn, like you should. So on that there, it now says it's charging. The map just disappeared for some reason. I'll put that on the screen there for you. Let me just, I might actually just go out of it, to tell you the truth, and go back in and see what, close the app down completely. We'll go back into it. It might connect. So if I connect through Bluetooth mode again, let's see, make sure that that map actually does come up. So there we go. So it's come up perfectly fine there again. So yeah, so now it says it's charging. The battery's 90%, so it only uses 10% of its battery to mow this lawn, which is fantastic. The battery will last quite literally forever if you're only mowing such a small lawn like this. You'll get thousands of cycles out of that battery if it's only using the top 10% of the battery. The up at the top right hand corner there, the camera function up there. So we need to be in Bluetooth mode for that. Let me just go back and see if we can go into Wi-Fi mode. So put that into Wi-Fi mode. So the top little icon at the top there, hit that camera there. It automatically throws itself into portrait mode, into landscape mode. So wait for that to connect, and it brings up a picture of the camera there. If we put the top right down, we can full screen that. It comes up, and that's makes it. If I move around, you'll see that I'm actually there. So yeah, so it's not absolutely fantastic footage. The quality of footage is not great, but the camera sees everything. You can check that anytime you like. So whenever you're out of the house, you can check that, and you can also remote control the robot, off down the paths. You can run the front camera on it. You can remote control the robot outside of the zone. You can take it out to the front yard if you wish, so you can go and check on the front yard if you so wish to, and then take it home back onto the lawn area. Once you get it back on the lawn area, you can go back into the standard app and just send it home, and it'll go home. So you really can do great things like that. And obviously you've also got the spot guarding, which is that bit down the bottom right hand corner there, where you can actually set this robot just to leave the base station and set up a spot on the other side of the house somewhere. The robot will just sit there for, I'm not sure, I think it's up to 3 hours, I think, where you can take it out there, have the robot just sit there and just surveil for 3 hours. If that's an area where you want to make sure it gets covered by your camera system. And then once it runs down in battery, or the 3 hours ends, comes back and charges itself back up again. I think that's really handy. It's just another little feature that you can actually get out of these guys. So that's the that spot guarding and also the camera feature, which it really is quite useful. I sort of think that's it. There's not a lot to really talk about with these guys, to tell you the truth. As in, because they've got basic settings, they're a single area robot. For these ones, it really comes down to how complicated your yard is, and if anything in your yard is taller than 600 millimeters high or 60 centimeters high, that's when the signal from the beacons get interrupted with. So if everything's nice and low in your yard, and you've got a reasonably big open yard and with no obstacles in it, then 2 beacons are going to do the job perfectly fine. If you've got an L-shaped yard, you're probably going to need three beacons, and if you've got a complicated yard, it's going to be more. How many more? It's really, really is something to be determined. And again, one of the biggest reasons why I constantly always harp on that, don't buy your robot lawnmowers from big box stores. They can't help you, unfortunately. They can't service you after you've purchased the product. So honestly, buy from robotic specialists, companies that actually deal with the robotic lawnmowers, preferably just robot lawnmowers, because robot vacuum cleaners are a completely different kettle of fish compared to these guys. So look, just if you want to basically just buy a product, test it, and expect it to fail and then return it, then by all means buy it from a big box store, because that's the sort of only service you're going to get out them, is to be able to easily return the product if it didn't work for you, because you probably didn't set it up correctly. So buy them from people who can actually give you the advice you need during the setup. People can help you out, particularly with this particular machine. Getting a layout of your lawn sent through to us so that we can actually tell you how many beacons you actually need. Remember, these guys only come with 2 beacons when they're actually shipped, and the extra beacons are $199 each, or you can get 2 for $350, I think it is. So so it's going to add up when you need to get extra beacons over and over and over again. If you're sort of, you think the reason is that your beacons aren't in the right place, or you need more beacons, but it might not be. It might be something else that we can really help you out with. So honestly, just buy from someone who can give you advice after you've actually purchased the product, because honestly, your big box stores can't help you. In a lot of the cases, the manufacturers and their call centers, they generally can't help you very much either. So having access to a specialist robotic lawnmower installer is going to really, really help us to be able to help you to get the robot installed properly, hopefully the first time. And also to make sure that it's the right robot for your yard in the first place. So there's a lot of wireless robot technology coming out now at the moment with the robot lawnmowers. You really do need to select the right robot for your yard, because how much of the sky it sees, structures, interference and obstructions that are in the middle of the lawn, trees. There's so many factors to really take into account when selecting the robot for any particular property. So please, I do implore you, get advice. That's all I can say, is get advice before you decide to purchase a robot. So I think that's really about it. I don't think haven't covered anything. Obviously with this guy, the cutting heights are still manually set, so there's no way of setting the cutting height through the app. And again, when eventually these guys do multiple areas, and they will be able to do multiple areas at some point, but it's just not anytime soon for us in Australia. So we'll see how long it takes before we actually do get firmware that allows them to do multiple areas. When that happens, you will still be stuck with a manual dial for your height adjustment, so you'll never be able to set this to different heights for different lawns. But other than that, in most cases you don't want to do that. And so, like always guys, if you have questions, just send us an email at sales@robotlawnmowers.com.au. You can check out a lot of information, these videos, a lot of other content on our website at www.robotlawnmowers.com.au, and you can find us on all the socials, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Just search for Robot Lawnmowers Australia. Thanks for watching.